With the release of The Running Man this week, we now have 8 Edgar Wright movies to rank from worst to best. I love Edgar Wright as a director, and honestly, I very much thoroughly enjoy a lot of his filmography. So some of this ranking was actually really hard to do because there's just some that I have more nostalgia for, some that I love to revisit more. So definitely leave your ranking down below in the comment section because this is going to be a very subjective ranking. I cannot wait to hear your guys' ranking down below in the comment section. So without further ado, let's get into this ranking right now. Down at my number 8 is probably a film that a lot of you guys actually haven't seen, but Edgar Wright actually directed a documentary called The Sparks Brothers. Now, I never really knew about these musicians. I'm not the hugest fan of documentaries, but I still wanted to check it out because it is an Edgar Wright film. I saw it at its premiere of Sundance, and it was fairly good. It was entertaining, but it's not one that I've ever really gone back to. I think the editing style very much feels to an Edgar Wright, the pacing, all of the fun tone to it truly is and has that Edgar Wright style to it, but in a documentary format. I would say if you haven't seen this movie, you should. The only reason it's at the bottom of this list is just because it's not my personal cup of tea. Then we get into my number 7, and this is still a movie that I thoroughly enjoy, but I've never had the urge to go back and revisit it, and that is Last Night in Soho. I think it is one of the most unique things that Edgar Wright has easily done in his filmography, but for me, I find the film to be a little bit predictable and honestly just kind of missing that spark, that one thing that makes it light up. Everything from a technical achievement is absolutely there. The film is absolutely gorgeous. There's so many awesome technical shots. It is an absolute vibe of a film, and it's very different than anything else he's done in his career. And to the same thing, Thomas McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy are incredible in this movie as well. This is again just one of those movies I don't personally care to go back to. I don't know what it is. After I saw it, I thoroughly really liked it. I think I gave it like a 4 out of 5 at the time, and I very much would recommend it to people, but it's just not one that I care for. It's just not one I care to go back to when I have the rest of his filmography, but a 4 out of 5 movie is still not bad. Brings me down to my number 6, which is the brand new Edgar Wright movie, The Running Man, which has actually been getting a lot more mixed reviews than I honestly expected leaving the theater. I really like The Running Man. I'm not huge on the Arnold movie. I don't really know much about the Stephen King novel, but the way that he very much balanced a satire on making and attacking our government, but the same thing like network television and all these different aspects and ideas was awesome. I think it's thrilling, it's action-packed, but at the same time, it has a thematical message to it. And that was something that I wasn't really expecting from this movie. I wasn't expecting so much Stephen King isms in it. I expected more Edgar Wright isms to it, and I really thoroughly loved how he was able to dissect and do something a little bit different here in his filmography. Glenn Powell is awesome in this role. I think so is Josh Brolin. I think so is Katie O'Brien. I think so is Lee Pace. I mean, the list goes on and on. I think the film could have been a little bit longer to expand on certain ideas, and I do think once you get to the third act, some people will say it sizzles out instead of exploding, as specifically of what the pacing is building up to be. It necessarily isn't bad. I think some people might find some issues there. I mean, I'm a fan of The Running Man. I genuinely am a fan of this movie, and it was not one that I was actually very excited for. I just kind of went in with an open mind. I'm pleasantly surprised. Yes, does it feel like an Edgar Wright movie? No, I think it misses some of those flares, but I think he was going for something a little bit different here. I mean, come on, the Michael Cera action sequence, it's pretty Edgar Wright-esque. Get into my number 5, and my number 5 is The World's End. Now, I would say 5 and on up, these are movies that I absolutely love. When it comes down to specifically the Coronado trilogy, The World's End is the one that I've just never really gone back to. I've only seen it a handful of times, and every time I have gone back to it, I very much enjoy it. I laugh. I love the action scenes. I love the camaraderie around these guys, and specifically the whole concept of the movie. See, when it comes down to the Coronado trilogy, it actually might be my favorite story out of the 3. I have a little bit more nostalgia for the other 2 specifically, so that's why this one leaves into the 5th place. Brings me into my number 4, which is Shaun of the Dead. This is a movie that I loved growing up. I remember when my dad showed me it, we'd just watched Dawn of the Dead for the first time, then went and watched Shaun of the Dead, and I love this movie. I think this is such a clever, fun satire on zombie movies, on post-apocalyptic films. It's not just like funny into that own realm, but it really pokes fun at society itself. But I also love the flair of how these films are directed. Like honestly, these top 5 are like just so unique to its own aspect that I don't think anyone else other than Edgar Wright would have been able to craft in this manner. And Shaun of the Dead was the start of that. I think this very much is in some ways like a very boots to the ground indie style type of directing film where you can tell that they didn't have the biggest budget, but Edgar Wright's doing as much as he possibly can. And this movie's just fucking awesome. Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are absolutely classic in here, and I could rewatch Shaun of the Dead any day and absolutely enjoy it. Down to my number 3, which is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Now, I love the manga for Scott Pilgrim. I love the video game for Scott Pilgrim. I love the world of Scott Pilgrim. And Edgar Wright's movie is just perfect. It's a perfect adaptation of Scott Pilgrim's manga. And I think he just absolutely, from the casting to the action to the editing to the story, I mean, this guy just nailed it in every single aspect. There is no doubt about that. Is this movie going to be for everybody? Hell no. The tone is so crazy. My dad says it's one of the worst films he's ever seen in his life. But for me, I disagree. It's a 5 out of 5 film for me. I think Michael Cera is absolutely amazing in here. And I think there is an argument to be made that this might actually be Edgar Wright's best movie. But I have nostalgia for the other two that I'm about to talk about. Hence why this is at my number 3. But this was actually really hard to put at my number 3. I debated at putting it at my number 1. I went back and forth for quite a while. The music, the CGI, the visual effects, the flair, it just feels like it just brings the manga to life in such a unique way. And I genuinely don't think there's any other film like this out there. Edgar Wright just fucking smashed it, man, and I love what he did with Scott Pilgrim. Again, my number 2, and I know this is one of his later films, which is weird that I have so much nostalgia for, but it's Baby Driver. There's a lot of things that kind of surround this, and one is that this is like one of the first times I ever actually got into an early screening of a movie. Not by press, just like one tickets, got to see this like, I think like 3 or 4 or 5 months early. The film hadn't even had a trailer yet by the time I'd seen this movie. All I knew is it was Edgar Wright. And I was a fan of him, and I wanted to see what his next flair was. I didn't know what the movie was about, and I watched Baby Driver and absolutely loved it. Went back to the theater and probably saw it like 2 more times, 3 more times. Became one of those staples that I would just rewatch it at home all the time. Now, I know some of the actors are canceled now, so I'm not going to go on that part. That's also another reason I was kind of debating, but I thoroughly just enjoy this movie from such a directing and writing standpoint that I do think that Baby Driver is like one of those pinnacle films of like my like young adult days, like towards the earlier 20s. And I specifically love how much this film like just infuses. I'm a huge fan of heist movies, and the way that Baby Driver is a getaway driver and it's all these different things, and then it also has this romance and you really care for it. But the way that he edited this film to music and makes the music such a piece of the film was very much inspiring. And again, it is one of the things that actually inspires me to look at this movie in such a whole different dynamic in a different way. And honestly, it went towards a lot of the things that I was studying at the time for film and television and getting more into this entire space. And I love how Edgar Wright had really much infused that. I think it was such a unique thing. And I know it's not the first thing that a director's ever done where they wrote and edited certain sequences to music, but the way that Edgar Wright really much wrote the music into this movie really much played it out to where it really much felt like a personality, a heartbeat, a character of this entire film. And Baby Driver for me is just lands across. Yes, while we have actors that are absolutely canceled in here, that's for sure. But on just a standpoint of just supporting Edgar Wright, I still love Baby Driver to its whole different degree. And I love the action sequences. I love the romance. I love the music. I love the editing. I love the cinematography. Absolutely a 5 out of 5 film. My number 1 favorite film of his entire filmography is Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz is a classic. It is one that I love going back to. And it's funny, like, on the surface, like, I probably enjoy this one, like, in terms of, like, how wacky and weird it could get out of the Coronado trilogy. Like, on the surface, like, the least, but, like, when you go back and rewatch it, it is literally a dynamite film. One that dives into like mysteries and twists and the way that he makes fun of like cop procedurals and even like films like The Bad Boys at that point in time, and like putting Nick Frost and Simon Pegg in these roles, and when you go through the whole entire Coronado trilogy, seeing how different each and every one of their roles are throughout this, it's phenomenal. And I think Hot Fuzz is just that pinnacle of it. Plus the action, the brutality, all of that stuff in here is fantastic. Timothy Dalton is absolutely underrated in here, and I could not get enough of his sequences. I just laugh my ass off consistently at Hot Fuzz. I find myself thoroughly entertained. And again, a lot of this might be nostalgia for why it's at my number one, but I just absolutely could rewatch this film every day and be absolutely excited. I love Edgar Wright's filmography, but Hot Fuzz is my number one. So definitely leave your thoughts down below. What is your favorite Edgar Wright movie? I cannot wait to hear it. And of course, until next time, stay classy.